Greetings. Welcome to another episode of the Immuno Labs Podcast. Today we're actually covering a very exciting subject, which is how to slow down your biological clock and, more importantly, how to increase your longevity. Now, for a lot of people, this is going to sound like it may be something crazy complicated, but here's the good news. In this video, you're going to find very simple habits that everybody can do, and the secret is you have to do it consistently. Now, before we get into it, please take a moment, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, throw in a comment, let me know of questions that you have, topics you want us to cover in the future, and also hit that notification bell, because then as we release new videos, you'll be sure to get an alert and be able to, continue on this journey with us. So, as I was saying, consistency is everything, right? So it's not just watching, one piece of content and then being like, oh, now I know exactly what to do. It's staying up to date with it, because a lot of things have changed. In the, the 20 years that I've been, in this healthcare field, there's been a lot of changes. I mean, I remember early days, people thought that, creatine was going to have your kidneys fail. Now it's, touted as something that everyone should be taking. So it's just one small example, but that's why you want to make sure that you're staying updated. When it comes to your health, there's really 5 areas that you want to master. And we're going to be diving more into those to talk about how you can start reversing, that biological clock. So the first area is the food that you eat, right? And we'll get into more details about that. The food that you eat, after that, hydration. The next thing when those two are in line is sleep. After sleep, exercise. And the last one, which is often overlooked, is your mental state and stress. The first lifestyle that can really help you slow your aging down is going to be sleep. It's something that most people overlook. And a lot of times people think, oh, I can get away with, sleeping less. I mean, there is a minuscule amount of people who may have a different type of gene that allows them to get less sleep, but don't roll the dice on that. It's much better to go for a longer period of sleep and aiming for that, 7 to 9 hours. I know oftentimes people think, oh, I can get by on 4 or 5 hours or even 6 hours. But remember, this is about consistency and longevity of feeling good. So even though you may be able to go one night, 5 hours and you can still perform the next day, it's not a habit that you want to keep doing every single day. So really, focus in, shoot for that 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. Also, you want to be, if you can, you want to monitor your sleep. So you can use simple things like, an Apple Watch, an 8 Sleep, an Oura Ring. All those things are additional expenses, but if it is something that you have, start paying attention to that. Find out how long does it take you to fall asleep? How much deep sleep are you getting? Are you getting into REM? And then overall, just how long you're staying asleep. Because all those things matter, and those are metrics that you can start influencing as you start making some of these other changes. The last thing with sleep, and this is something that I didn't learn until much later in life, which was the consistency of your sleep and wake times. So this is often referred to as sleep hygiene, which is, are you going to bed at the same time, regularly? It doesn't have to be like, to the second, but if you're shooting for a bedtime at 10 p.m., do you want to stay within probably like that 30-minute window, 10:30? I mean, ideally, right there at 10 o'clock, but, don't freak out if it's 10:01. You're like, oh my God, I missed my sleep window. So if you're going to bed around, let's say 10 p.m., then a great time for you to be waking up is probably about like 6 a.m. And you just want to find out like what's going to work for your schedule and then just adjusting that either the bedtime or your wake up time to work. But you want to make sure you're kind of moving both of them, right? So you're always getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You want to make sure that you're moving your body daily, right? So there's a few things that you can do. Of course, you can get a personal trainer. You can do strength training. You can go to Pilates, bar, CrossFit, whatever it is you want. But don't overcomplicate it, especially if you're just starting out. Any movement is going to be good movement for the most part, right? So don't do something that's going to injure you, because that hurts the ultimate goal. Remember, the ultimate goal is consistency. So it's not that one day you want to wake up and you're going to run a marathon and then not be able to work out for 2 months later. You want to be able to make sure you're doing something you can consistently do over time. So, walking, running, all these things are great. Lifting weights, all that's fine. It's just making sure to try an intensity that can be done daily or at least 5 days out of the week. I mean, a lot of the research says, I think it's about like 30 minutes a day of some kind of, exercise is key. as long as you're getting into the gym, doing something that's good for you, learning how to improve upon it, you're going to be all right. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Of course, you can always improve as time goes, but make sure to do something that's building strength, building muscle mass, and then also make sure you're doing something that's increasing your cardiovascular health and doing things that are going to be more cardio related, such as, some running, some sprinting, even things like lifting, potentially done a certain way, higher rep, shorter rest, or supersets. Those can start, getting your heart rate going too, and those are going to be great for your health as well. So after you have a meal, make sure to take some time, walk for 10 minutes after a meal. So if you're going to, restaurant somewhere, have your food. If you can, take a walk around the area, especially if you're in some kind of a shopping center, which a lot of restaurants are, or they're around, some kind of pedestrian area. Walk around for a little bit before you hop into the car and head home. Or if you don't have, the luxury of, having a place that you can walk around, right at the place that you're eating, then just wait till you get home and then go for a bit of a walk. So ideally, just think about that when you're planning your meals and what you're going to be doing to allow yourself just even 10 minutes to walk around the area. Once again, this doesn't have to be some blistering pace or some kind of all-out sprint or something where you're getting your heart rate to a certain level. Just anything that just helps your body move, because it'll start taking out a lot of that glucose that you just ate and making sure it gets stored in the proper places. Chronic stress really accelerates aging and inflammation. And I think we all know of a story like this where someone seemed incredibly healthy, but they were just always so stressed out. For one, that makes a poor quality of life, right? That isn't the goal. No one wants to live 200 years if they're having the worst time of their life every single day, right? The goal of longevity and you living a long, healthy life is that you're also enjoying it. And the way that you'll have a long life is because you're enjoying it, right? So, find things that you can do to help reduce your stress. There are many things that can assist in this, especially nowadays. There are so many, videos that you can watch to do guided meditations. There's even videos where you can watch beautiful scenery to help, relax you. But aside from just sitting at a screen, you can even do some active things. Going for a walk can greatly help you reduce stress, especially if you're going for a walk, maybe listening to some music or a podcast. That can help a lot in managing your stress. Another thing that I've done in the past that I thought was actually really cool is they make adult coloring books. So this isn't, the coloring book that like your kids have that, kind of like more block coloring, but it's something that has like more, kind of complex images that you can kind of, color in. And what it does is it helps take all this noise in your mind and reduce it down so you're focused on just a specific little point and coloring that area in. It's not about being, the perfect artist, but taking that time, that stillness to allow your mind to reset. And with those adult coloring books, I was kind of already alluding to in the idea of the various guided meditations, but you can also take a moment, just do some breath work. So often just even, doing a nice big sigh of relief, just that simple breathing helps reduce a lot of stress in your body. So taking a moment to just relax. You're allowed to relax. I know several people that, run around trying to always get something done. What's the next thing to do? And, it's stressful and they don't take a moment to just try and relax. It's okay. You also don't have to worry about this being, some breath work, exercise, or some relaxation session that's going to take hours and then you're getting behind on everything. Just chunk it down to small things that you can do in your day. Maybe, before you begin eating, you take 10 minutes to just think about things that you're grateful for. Think about the successes that you've had in the day. Just try to, focus on your breathing in and out. Just even 10 minutes, you'll be relaxed. You'll be able to consciously, eat the food in front of you without overeating or stress eating or, freaking out, and it'll help you a lot. It goes a long way. And once again, these are simple things you can do that do make a big impact. And it sounds silly, talking about some of these things and stuff that you can do. It's like, does it really matter? Like, isn't there just a drug I can take? I mean, that's a whole other realm, a whole other, video of like why that isn't the real solution. The solution ends up being these small things that you can stack and do, daily. Another one that comes down to, helping you with those longevity metrics is avoiding toxins and inflammatory triggers. So these are going to be things, for example, I have a friend who has a skincare company, a phenomenal product, super clean. I mean, so clean, he can even, eat the product. So it's something that's really not going to be toxic to your skin if it's not toxic for you to eat. And for women, that is a huge area of toxins. If you look at most cosmetic products, they would be toxic if you ingested any of it. So you don't want to be putting that on your skin. Your skin's a massive organ. It's a huge absorption area as well. If you're caking yourself with all of this, toxic makeup, it can really be a problem. It can lead to a lot of hormone disruptions later. For other gentlemen out there, these are things, such as just looking at your products. Are you using a deodorant that's full of, bad chemicals? These are things that you can look into and just see, how can I make an improvement on this? You don't necessarily have to throw everything out tomorrow, but just start becoming more aware of this and looking and going, okay, how much of my day am I exposing myself to some kind of a toxin or something that's going to be inflammatory to me, right? So this is where we come back to the conversation around, alcohol and fast food and things like that. Everything can be, done in moderation, and we don't want to be doing something in any regularity that's triggering this inflammation, essentially hurting us from our goals. Instead, we want to be stacking a pathway towards the area that we want to get to, right? You don't want to become the master of fast food and how, to eat the most Big Macs or something, right? Nor do you want to become the master of, smoking cigarettes, right? It's not really the goal that you have. So if that's not your goal, then what's the point in having a habit like that, right? Of course, if you want to go out, have, some fancy coffee or a nice, sweet or dessert somewhere, it's not the end of the world. It's all about how are you stacking things, for you versus against you. And of course, you can have treats along the way because, hey, that can come back to your mental health, right? You can have a fun little snack. You can go eat at a nice cafe. You can enjoy, a glass of wine somewhere, once in a while. These things are not going to take you off your goal, and they could help, especially in the management of your stress and just fully enjoying life instead of trying to white knuckle everything and be like, I just got to do everything perfect. That creates more stress, right? Now let's move on to, simple daily routines that make a big difference. So a huge one that I've heard about, and I've noticed this for myself, especially as I travel around to different, parts of the country with different time zones, is making sure that when you first wake up, getting that morning light exposure. Now, depending on what time you're regularly waking up and, what kind of season we're in, if it's winter or summer, it may be a little bit different when the sun first comes up. But even within your home, once you wake up, I know for myself, I try to turn on my lights in my house, bright, for me, for when I'm awake. So like in the kitchen area, the living room where I'm at, getting stuff going for the day, I turn the lights on really bright so I can start, waking my body up. I also then take a moment as the sun rises to walk outside, get that morning light, let my body know, hey, it's time to wake up. This will go a long way in your day of keeping your energy up. It's honestly probably one of the biggest things that's helped me feel more consistent in my energy instead of, waking up, having low light, being like, oh, let me just wait for the day to get going. Because when I do that, it takes so much longer for me to feel like the day is getting going because I'm not telling my body the day has begun because I don't have lights on. I'm not, taking a moment to get outside and get some fresh air and get some good sunlight on me. Another one that can assist a lot, especially for those that are waking up and grabbing, coffee, is making sure to take a moment and hydrate, right? When you were asleep, let's say you were asleep for that, 7 to 9 hours, that's a long time that you weren't having any water. I mean, think about going through your entire workday without drinking any water, right? That's a lot of time. Now, granted, you're sleeping, so you're not moving around as much and maybe sweating, but still, you're taking a long time that you're not having any water. The first thing you should do when you wake up is hydrate and remineralize. So what that means is take a moment, get a nice glass of water, sprinkle just a little bit of salt in it, ideally some kind of like sea salt, or maybe even like a Himalayan salt, just something that'll add not just pure sodium to you, but will add some minerals as well. This will help your body, wake up, get going, and rehydrate you. A lot of times people's fatigue, especially for healthy individuals, that fatigue in the morning can really just be your body craving, some hydration, some minerals, some nutrients, something kind of get the body going, right? So that's a great thing to make sure to do. Also, if you are going to have that cup of coffee or tea or something with caffeine, I noticed a huge improvement because initially I would wake up and go straight, to grabbing like a shot of espresso or immediately grabbing a coffee and not thinking about that window from wake up to when I had that caffeine. Now, I've learned from people like Andrew Huberman, where they taught me that, once you wake up, you want to wait an hour to maybe an hour and a half until you have caffeine so that your body can start flushing out the adenosine that you've had that kind of makes you feel tired. But you want to kind of like burn that up because otherwise caffeine blocks that receptor. So then it'll kind of just stay in your body, and once the caffeine wears off, then that's where you start getting tired. So if you've noticed that you'll wake up, have caffeine, and then maybe around 10, 11, maybe around noon, you're feeling tired, that could be the reason. Is because you didn't wake up, and then allow your body the time to get rid of that adenosine so that you can have the caffeine and then you feel a lot better. I know just for myself, just as an anecdote, that's made me feel a lot better. So I'll wake up, I feel thirsty. So instead of trying to grab something caffeinated, I'll have some water, put a little bit of salt or put some like electrolytes in it or some like trace minerals in my water, drink that, probably about 8 ounces, just whatever a nice glass of water is. And then I'll wait. I usually set a timer actually, because I'm just a nut. So I'll set a timer. I wait for it to go off. And by that time, my coffee is a perfect temperature to drink. And then I enjoy the coffee and then I don't feel tired throughout the day. So it helps. I know it's helped me a lot. I think it's going to help you too. Eating within a certain time window. So for some people that may mean intermittent fasting. We've talked about autophagy before and how that can help your body a lot. And then you're either doing long fasting or, even intermittent fasting. But having an eating window can help you, because if you're going to be waking up at the same time and going to bed at the same time, well, now you kind of know your start and your end, right? And you don't want to be eating or drinking really like 2 hours before you go to bed. So you can kind of shore up that window. And now you have a window of when you can eat. If you're going to do some intermittent fasting, then you kind of shorten that up as well. This can help you to control how many calories you're eating, because you have a smaller window to eat, as long as you don't go crazy and eat like a box of donuts during the day. But if you're making smart choices, it'll be a lot easier with having those eating windows to then be able to kind of better, spread out how many calories you're having throughout the day without having some ginormous meal at the beginning and then just kind of running this crazy roller coaster of blood sugar spikes and, feeling like you're starving and then you want to eat more. So it's much better to have a window that you're eating in, especially if you're able to do it, once again, on a proper rhythm. So just as there's a rhythm to waking up and going to bed, there's a rhythm to eating. You eat, your blood sugars, probably going to go up some, start going down as you're digesting it, and then you're kind of ready for the next meal. You feel hungry. That's usually where the hunger comes from. It's kind of the blood sugar drop. Your body's triggering you to say, hey, it's time to eat some food. Eat some food, goes back up, right? So you want to just kind of continue that same wave in eating those, healthy, nutritious meals. Also in those meals is thinking through, so I like this one because a lot of times people talk about snacking, but they don't talk about these like daily movement snacks. So I alluded to that earlier of like after you have a meal, find the time you can like take that 10-minute walk, especially like right after the meal. Like that's the best time to have one of these kind of little, daily movement snacks. So find times throughout your day, even if you're working a lot, you could do something like, the Pomodoro timer, where you'll be doing deep focused work for, half an hour and a half, whatever kind of, your work lends it to. And then when you finish that, take a moment, stand up, walk around, walk to the bathroom, whether you just walk around your building a little bit. Once again, it doesn't have to be some, mile long trek, but just something that gets your body moving. And because when you're moving, that's also when your lymphatic system is working. So your lymphatic system mirrors your cardiovascular system. It's how you kind of get all the toxins and gunk out of your body. The details of that'll be for another video, but the way that it moves, it pumps, is from your body moving. So that's where you see things like trampolines and rebounders where people can bounce up and down. It pumps their lymphatic system. It kind of helps your body process and get all the garbage out. Think of, moving as like the, fuel that kind of, fires up the garbage trucks that drive around your body, right? So take that time, set, blocks of time. I know with, various wearables like an Apple Watch, I think Fitbit, I think probably all of them, they have timers where it's like, hey, a stand timer. So you're not sitting down for too long. It reminds you, hey, get up, walk around a little bit. That can help a ton. And just think of it as your daily movement snack, right? So now let's get into, supplements for longevity. What is it that can help you go to the next level? For a lot of this, I had notes about various supplements that I take, things that, most people would benefit from. I think the best thing to do is to figure out, where your body is at, right? So either do some kind of a nutrient, evaluation test to figure out what are you depleted in, because that's really what you want to make sure you're taking care of. And then what are you potentially too high in? And then that's what you want to start reducing, right? So that's where you can work with, either your primary care physician or ideally a functional, medicine physician or, chiropractor that's, more innovative. And talk with them about this and be like, I think I may want to take some supplements. I want to, be feeling better. Here's some of my symptoms. Here are some of my goals. What supplements should I be taking that could really help me? Because, just grabbing like that, what's the generic one? Like that 1-a-day multivitamin, it's potentially not not going to do much, right? It either will not have enough of what you need, or what it has that you need is maybe in a form that your body isn't able to digest and assimilate, which is really called like methylation. So your body's ability to kind of break it down and make use of it. So just reaching for a multivitamin like any generic one may not be the real solution. I'm sure several people have, tried a certain multivitamin, and the only thing they noticed is that their pee was, a very pretty color or very bright color. So a lot of times that's a supplement where your body doesn't do much with it and you just have excess, so you're just urinating it out. So that's not the goal. You don't just be buying supplements to just essentially be flushing them down the toilet, right? So instead, it's good to do some testing to find out, what your levels are low in, and then also talking with, some kind of like a functional medicine doctor, or like I said, an innovative chiropractor who can then work with you in figuring out, all right, this is what you really, should be supplementing with, and these are, good quality supplements that can actually get you there. Because you could read the headline that says, hey, you need to have, vitamin B or certain B complex, but then the question will be, well, are you getting a B complex that your body can digest, assimilate, and make use of, or are you getting one that your body's going to essentially see as trash and you just be throwing it out? Unfortunately, there's not, tons of regulation around supplements, so a lot of them can kind of get away with, giving you not the best version of it. So that can be a challenge. And that's where it's hard to navigate on, just like a general video like this to tell you, hey, definitively take this one or that one. You really kind of need to figure it out, with your physician. It's good to know, what's going on under the hood, right? If you aren't already doing at least annual, check-ins, you definitely want to start doing that. Depending on where you're at in your health, you want to potentially do more. Having things like these various wearables, a blood pressure monitor at home, a scale that you can measure your weight, all of these things are good to just keep a pulse, I guess figurative and literally on, just how your body's doing. So for your weight, that's just a good thing to see, like, all right, is your body weight going up because, you're working out, you're building muscle and it should be going up? Or is your body weight going up because you're just eating too much and you're just gaining more fat? That could potentially be a problem depending on what your health goals are and, what your body composition's like. And same on the reverse. If you're trying to build muscle, but then you notice, wait a minute, I'm just losing tons of weight. Maybe you're under eating, maybe something else is going on. Or if, you feel you're eating the same, but now your weight's, going down and down and down, that can be a problem as well. So it's good to have these little metrics that you don't really worry about on the day-to-day of how much it changes, but on kind of the month-to-month, the week-to-week to see like where is it going. And keep in mind, for those that are trying to lose weight, healthy weight loss, right? Not defined by me, but defined by the various research and studies, healthy weight loss is measured as 1 pound a week, right? So people thinking that they're going to do some 90-day transformation and lose 100 pounds or 50 pounds, that's not realistic. It's not healthy, okay? So I want to share that with you so you just understand like what this means. So it didn't, take from, from college to, 50 years old. So like it didn't take those, 30 years for you to gain all this weight and now you can just reverse it in like a couple months. It's going to take some time. And same on the reverse. If you want to, get big and strong and athletic, and if maybe you did that in the, like 8 years that you're going through, high school and college, well, if you weren't training for, another 20 years, it will probably take you a while to get back to there. But the goal is consistency and just measuring those metrics. And then also with, blood pressure, having a blood pressure cuff, it's a super easy way to just check in and see, hey, is my systolic good? Is my diastolic good? Because when we're talking about longevity, we want to make sure that we are ahead of things, right? It's not about sitting in your home and being your own doctor and diagnosing yourself of what's going on, but just having a pulse and seeing like, all right, what is your normal levels? How's this stuff changing? How's it adapting? Majority of these things are very inexpensive. I mean, you can get a scale that's at least reproducible to itself, right? Don't worry if, the weight number is precisely correct or not. The part that really matters is when you step on the scale, what number does it say? If you step off and then step back on, does it say the same number, right? As long as it does that, it's fine. The number is, largely irrelevant for at least, a starting point. But then as time passes, you want to see it going, either staying the same, going up, going down, depending on what your goals are. And then same with, the blood pressure cuff. If you put it on and you get a reading, if you do that reading again, is it, stay pretty much the same, or is it do something wildly different? One time it say that you're 200 systolic and the next time it says you're 100 systolic. These are wild swings that, should not be happening, especially in the short time of, taking one reading to the next. So they're good things that you can have at your home and just be able to monitor, so that as you do go into your physician and talk with them, you can have more information to let them know, hey, these are my goals and my health and my longevity. Here are some of the things I'm looking at monitoring. Of course, I'm sure a lot of doctors will be like, oh man, that's crazy. Why are you doing this every day? And say some of the stuff you don't have to do every day, but the thing like your weight and the scale, that one's so easy. You wake up, you use the bathroom, your scale's right there, you step on it. If you have it connected to your smartphone or has a Wi-Fi connection, it immediately logs it, you're done, right? Blood pressure, it's a little more involved. You use the bathroom, weigh yourself, sit down, do your blood pressure, as you get the day going or before you go to bed, and then you just kind of log that number, save it, and then as time passes, you can kind of see how you're doing. Reducing chronic inflammation. So some things you can greatly influence, some things you can't. Some things are, things you can, make sure you're getting tested for. So for example, here at Immuno Labs, we do food sensitivity, food allergy testing. If at every meal, if you're eating something that's triggering inflammation and it's as simple as not eating that food, that's, a huge benefit of our blood print test, is just find out every 3 months, every 6 months, what your inflammatory foods are, make an adjustment in your diet, continue with that diet, avoiding those certain foods and making sure to eat the foods that you can eat. Do that for 3 months and then get retested at the end of those 3 months. Or if you need to go a little bit longer, then go to the 6 months and then get retested. Your food sensitivities and your delayed allergies, they're going to change. So you want to find out, okay, what are my inflammatory foods now? How can I adjust that diet so that every day when I'm sitting down to a meal, I'm not doing something inflammatory, and then, getting retested. And then you can also talk with your physician to find out, are there other markers that I should be looking at regularity? Is there something in my hormones I should be looking at? Is there something with, C-reactive protein, if you want to make sure to monitor your heart more closely, that you should be looking at. But those are things you can talk with your physician, but all of us are eating food. Majority of the people that we work with have, anywhere from like 10 to maybe 40 reactive foods that, they're commonly eating in their diet. So you definitely want to make sure you get a blood print test and see how you can just make those small modifications in your diet. So we've covered a lot of stuff, right? We've talked about longevity. We've talked about things to measure. We've talked about daily habits. We've talked about, kind of core areas to focus on. When does it end? Well, the reality is it doesn't. This isn't something that you do for a couple months or that you do for a year and then it's done with. This is a way that you live your life. And the truth of the matter is you're living your life, one way that's taking you somewhere. The question is, where are you going to end up, right? So if you don't know where you want to go and you're just doing whatever, it's going to be hard to say where you're going to end up, right? But if you start making some choices today, and once again, you don't have to, completely 180 everything in your life. If you want to do that, great, go for it. But I know that can be a heavy lift. But even if you just want to change one thing, two things, maybe tomorrow when you wake up, you go, you know what? I've heard a couple people talk about that caffeine thing. I'm going to set a timer when I wake up. I'll have my first sip of coffee an hour and a half after I wake up, just before I head into work. Or maybe I won't drink my coffee until I get to work because it'll be an hour and a half from when I wake up. Whatever it is for you, just try that one thing. Actually, I guess the easiest thing that everyone could do, as soon as you wake up, have some water, have some, a little bit of salt in your water, especially some sea salt. Just try that. See how you feel. Do it for several days. But keep in mind, this isn't something that you make some changes, you do it for a little bit, and then you can go back to, whatever you were doing before. Instead, it's start stacking things that are going to take you to where you want to go. They're going to take you to the long, healthy life that you want to enjoy. Start with one thing. So, first goes from being a challenge to then it becomes a habit to then it becomes such a routine that you don't even think about it, right? You're like on autopilot. Think about things in your life already that are on autopilot. Maybe, how you brush your teeth, right? You probably don't think much about what tooth you're brushing or all that stuff. As, a parent of two younger kids, I can tell you there's a lot of thought that goes into how I brush their teeth because it's a new thing for me, right? Of course, as time passes, it just becomes another normal habit. So you start with one thing, it becomes normal. Then add another thing, right? Then that becomes normal. Then you add another thing, then that becomes normal. And then, maybe you're now months, a year later, and you've completely changed your life, right? You used to never, wake up at the same time, and you used to never go to bed at the same time. Now you do. Now you feel great. You used to not wake up and drink water. Now you do. You're feeling better. You used to always wake up, grab coffee really quick to, help you get your day going. But then you always felt this afternoon, lull and slump. Now you've changed when you have your caffeine. Now you feel energized throughout the day, right? All of these things should lead to, better benefit. The only one I can think of that as you make this change, it's initially hard for a while is probably the exercise. Because when you first start exercising, your body feels sore, like, stuff feels off. But even that, it doesn't take that long, right? A couple of days of doing that, maybe a couple of weeks, you start getting used to, start getting into a good cadence. And you remember, like all these things, you don't have to take it to a crazy extreme. You don't need to wake up and drink a gallon of water, right? You don't have to have your first exercise be, running 5 miles. Your first exercise can be, walking around for 10 minutes. Your second exercise could be walking around for 11 minutes, right? You don't have to do anything too crazy, but I hope in this video, you've learned a couple things that you can do to, help improve your longevity, to help improve your lifespan, and most importantly, help improve your quality of life. Thank you so much. My name is Boone Zavik. Please, if you haven't already and you've gotten this far into the video, you got to make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Please put a comment below. Let me know you saw the video. Thank you so much.